From being afraid of fighting an actual competition to making a desperate bid at regaining his lost fame, let's look at the insights Islam Makhachev gave us on Conor McGregor's upcoming return later this year. Starting with the fact that Conor refuses to accept he's not that guy anymore. He may still attract the largest crowds, but the UFC has grown immensely as a sport since Conor flipped the promotion the bird and vacated both his titles. They can sell million-plus pay-per-view events pretty quickly now, and we have new superstars that come from all across the globe. Makhachev is aware that the UFC still wants to put Conor in a title matchup because of how good the numbers are, and being sidelined as the second most important fighter in the division is a bit hurtful to the literal champion. But Islam can rest assured. While Conor may be one of the bigger draws in the UFC, it's no longer a one-man show. And more importantly, Conor really isn't that fighter anymore. He demanded the big bucks, not because he could talk well into a mic, but because he could back the talk up. And the Irishman hasn't been able to walk the walk ever since his loss to Khabib. Maybe he could have made a comeback, but that was before he broke his leg in the third Poirier fight and couldn't walk altogether. Now that he's ready to step back into the fight conversation, Conor had to pick the right opponent for maximum impact. A Michael Chandler fight is both entertaining and winnable for McGregor. When you look at the top 5 lightweights in the UFC right now, it's a bunch of absolute killers. Islam is, stylistically, an even worse matchup for Conor than Khabib was, because of how advanced his striking proved to be against Volkanovski. And the former champ, Charles do Bronx, had a habit of getting hit inside the octagon. But his jiu-jitsu is too dangerous for Conor. He's lost to Dustin Poirier twice in 2021 already, so that fight isn't going to happen. And Beneil isn't nearly famous enough to interest Conor. Chandler, on the other hand, is a Goldilocks fighter. For one, fans love the gorilla. He puts on one heck of a show every time he fights, and he's made quite the name for himself these past couple of years in the UFC. Chandler may not have been able to build his way back up to another shot at the championship, but he's landed himself in a rad pants situation. However, Islam didn't just comment on Conor's true intentions. The champ thanks Chandler through his fight against Poirier to get the McGregor matchup. That's right, folks. Makhachev isn't sparing anybody with the trash talk, and I'm here for all of it. The Dagestan pointed out one of the most important aspects of matchmaking in the UFC, the immediate fight history. Had Chandler won the fight against Dustin, he wouldn't have gotten the Conor fight. They both match up with each other because they're both coming off losses to the top dogs in the division. Even when Dustin fought Conor, the Diamond didn't have a winning streak going and had been finished in both of his title fights. This gives the matchup some legitimacy, giving the winner enough of a claim to the title to make the division more interesting, while it also protects the UFC from the kind of nepotism claims they heard back when Conor was the double champ. For a moment, let's put aside what Makhachev thinks of Chandler for throwing a fight at the highest levels just for a payday, and look at how he views his mentor's biggest rival. The champ is pretty sure the fans have forgotten Conor as a serious title contender since his last fight because of how badly he got beaten by Dustin, and the lifestyle he has currently isn't going to help him bridge the gap felt between himself and the division's top echelon. Islam believes Conor just doesn't want to fight anymore. That's a really big claim to make about a fighter, especially Conor. The Irishman has made a career out of never saying no to a fight, and Dana White loved Conor as a contender because he would take on anyone, anywhere. But times have changed. Both Khabib and Islam don't think Conor has the hunger a fighter needs if he wants to compete against hungry contenders. He's made way too much money for his competitive spirit and slowly settled into a life of complacency a warrior can't afford. The champ was almost disgusted when he talked about how Conor isn't just drinking every day, but he's also smoking marijuana and not focusing on his diet. There are the signs of a man only fighting to make make money or stay relevant, not the lifestyle of a champion. And if I'm being honest, Conor sure has been partying this past year and a half. Vacations on his yacht, enjoying some whiskey and a joint for the pain, and taking some time off training. But the most important and consequential change in Conor's life is his decision to remove himself from the USADA testing pool. There's no way Conor hasn't been on performance enhancers for his recovery. Why else would he not want to be part of the pool? It would have to save him the trouble of being tested for 6 months before he's allowed to fight again. I thought Joe Rogan put it best. Conor's been looking like he could melt the USADA cup with his pee. The Irishman is huge. So huge that he won't even be fighting at lightweight anymore, despite the time he has to work on his frame. It's why this Ultimate Fighter gig is such a great fit for him right now. It gives him a way to stay relevant in the industry as he makes his way back to the cage, but it also gives him some time to get back into fighting shape. Fortunately for Conor, there's no steroid testing agency that's going to stop him from coaching fighters in reality TV shows. So the promotion effectively shielded their biggest star from complete obscurity. Although, as of a couple of weeks ago, Conor still hasn't rejoined the testing pool. Chandler's been pushing him to rejoin, so they have a set date for their fight. But Conor's giving USADA the superstar treatment and keeping them out of the loop. He's going to have to cut that out, because testing positive is going to harm Conor's shot at the title. There's no way to know for sure what's going on in Conor's head when it comes to his career plans. But there's an angle to the coaching decision that even Islam hasn't caught on to. The Irishman may be planning a move out of the 155-pound division. He's way too big for the Chandler fight to happen at any place smaller than welterweight. And Conor's talked a lot about wanting to move up to 170 for good. I'm sure cutting weight has gotten harder as he's gotten older, and his gas tank is depleted too quickly when he's fighting at 155. He's fought thrice in the heavier weight class before and has a 2-1 record, and always looked very good in that weight class. If you ask me, it also has to do with Conor realizing it's virtually impossible to overcome Islam's wrestling. If he wants to have a shot at UFC gold again in his career, his best chance comes in a striking matchup against a new champion, Leon Edwards. Even if he doesn't fight for the title, there are tons of exciting matchups at welterweight that Conor can target without the risk of taking on young contenders. Well, folks, that's everything behind Conor's decision to coach the Ultimate Fighter before his return.